Good evening and welcome to the Pompey Politics Podcast.
I'm Ian Tiny Morris.
And I'm Simon Sainsbury.
And welcome to the second of our online hustings for the 2024 Portsmouth City Council elections. And on Tuesday, where you can still get the episode wherever fine podcasts are bought, sold and traded, we were in St Jude Ward, and we're moving slightly along the coast this week to St Tom's as it's known. And last time out you heard from the Labour, Lib Dem and Portsmouth Independent candidates. So splendidly this evening we have the two candidates from Reform and the Green Party. So welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I will throw across to Simon. Tell us a little bit about St Jude, Simon.
I mean, I would, but I think...
No, don't. Tell us about St Tom's. Yeah. Oh, it's poor, very poor. I'm sure it'll get better from here.
We hope. And dear listener, do bear with us. We know there's a slight delay in the audio that Mark's receiving, so unfortunately we've not been able to fix that, but we'll kind of just kind of bear with in regard to the responses. So tonight, as Ian was saying, yes, we're joined by Mark Zimmer from the Reform Party and Elliott Lee from the Green Party. We have reached out to the other candidates in the ward. And those being Ian Holder is the Lib Dem candidate for St Tom's. He's up for re-election this year, having obviously previously been elected to the ward. We've got John Burrows for the Trade Union and Socialist Coalition, David Chandler for the Conservative Party, and Julian Lewis for the Labour Party. Unfortunately, our timing was set before we were aware that sadly that would be impossible for Ian to be able to attend due to his work commitments. So he sent his apologies. And we did offer him the opportunity to be able to provide us with a pre-written or pre-recorded opening speech and closing speech, but unfortunately, we don't have that, and sadly, I didn't get a response from the other candidates. So, thank you both for responding and saying yes. So it's great to have you on the show today. Let's talk a little bit about St Tom's. And I'll look forward to people telling me in the comments that I've got stuff wrong about my research about St Thomas. I absolutely love that. So please do set the comments alight with that. So the very southwestern part of the island, basically along the coast from Clarence Pier to just past the Harbour Railway Station, following the train line past the United Services Recreation Ground and down Winston Churchill Avenue, down Victoria Road North, down Victoria Road South, and then along part of Elm Grove before meandering its way through Somerstown down to Pier Road and back to the seafront. So it kind of takes in like a little chunk in the bottom left corner of the island. And there we go. Someone said I couldn't get the word meandering into a hustings, and there I did. Old Portsmouth, Spice Island, the Garrison Church, Hot Walls, and the Camber Docks bring a strong sense of history to the ward, as much as these are complemented by other amenities like the Isle of Wight Ferry Terminal, Gunwharf, the Spinnaker Tower, the City Museum, services, sports facilities, and many buildings for the University of Portsmouth, including the Ravelin Sports Centre, which was opened in March 2023. Contrasted with all the historic housing are rows and rows of terraced housing in Somerstown, which included two blocks that had dominated the skyline until 2022, those being Horatia and Leamington House, which were demolished bit by bit and now awaiting for the progress on the Summers Orchard scheme, seeking to regain and provide hundreds of affordable homes for residents. So what's the political story in St Tom's? Well, let me get my graphic up. There we go. So politically, the Liberal Democrats have won this ward in 8 of the last 9 elections, with the Conservatives winning it in 2015. The start of this period was emblematic of a tussle between the Conservative and Lib Dems, with Labour at the time being distant fourth to UKIP's third. 2015 was interestingly the best year for the Greens, seeing them come only 11 votes short of taking fourth place from UKIP that year. And except for a closer top three race in 2018, where there were only 146 votes between Labour in third and first place Lib Dems. And so since then, it's pretty much been a tussle for second place between a distant second place between the Conservatives and Labour Party, and the Greens had seen their vote share dissipated from the heights of over 700 in 2015 to just under 200. Another observation to note is that outside of a general election where turnout spikes normally, that the turnout is usually being between 33 and 35%, but there does appear to be a slight downward trend in that, and in the last two locals only achieving 27 and 26% respectively. So that's St Thomas. Tell me if I'm wrong now.
It all sounded perfectly sensible to me, Simon, but then I didn't do any research. So we will dive straight into our questions. So the first question is tell us about yourself, your history, and why you're standing for the party that you are. And can I ask that first to Mark, please?
Yes. Good evening. I'm Mark Zimmer. Excuse me. Married, 3 children, and 4 grandchildren. I moved to Portsmouth at the age of 16. I served my apprenticeship in the Portsmouth Dockyard as a fitter turner. And then before coming self-employed 12 years ago, I was a site safety manager at the Queen Street and the QA Hospital in Cosham. My journey to politics was just a surprise to me as well as my family. It didn't start. I've been aware of politics, but I didn't really get involved in politics until about 18 months ago. And then that was watching on Sunday morning, flicking through the channels, watching all the cookery programs, which James Martin and everybody else. And I stumbled across Talk TV, finger poised. I thought, well, actually, I was watching Sunday morning sermon. I thought, oh, but within a couple of seconds, I thought, this guy's talking sense. And basically, that was my eureka moment. I shouted out to my wife, hey, look at this guy, he's talking sense. And she just said, looked at me and thought, well, it's not the Discovery Channel he's watching, that's good. So, yeah, she just said, get involved. And here I am. It's just been a common sense and addressing the elephant in the room. As with St Thomas Ward, I've lived in Lombard Street, Castle Road, Grand Parade, Broad Street. Oh yeah, it's just the attachments there. We got married at the John Pounds Church, a reception at the Bridge Tavern. We honeymooned in the Broom Tower, and not to mention socialising in the pubs and restaurants in the area. So I can remember crab fishing with my crab fishing line around the Canberra when it was just a waste site. And that was many years ago. But yeah, so the attachment is there. And I'm never one to shy away from controversial or hot topics. And that's basically me.
Perfect, Mark. Thank you. So, Elliott, can I ask you to introduce yourself, a little bit of your history and why you're standing for the party that you're standing for?
Sure thing. Good evening, everyone, and it's good to be here after a couple of years of many attempts. So for those who don't know me, I'm Elliott. I use he, they pronouns. I'm the Green Party candidate for St Thomas this year. I'm also the co-coordinator of Portsmouth Green Party and involved in various other kind of community projects here and abouts. So my journey into politics started. I've been involved in health and social care for some years, and it was really about wanting to make sure people are being valued and making sure everybody gets a fair chance in life. And so, I've been working in social care for a couple of years, and then now in my current job, I'm supporting victims of modern slavery and human trafficking. So that's kind of my background. Politically, I campaigned for Labour for a couple of years until I kind of fell apart with it. I found the party didn't align with my values, and then the Green Party came along, which very much did align with my values of
30 seconds.
equality, fairness, and sustainability. I felt very much at the end of the day that we can't have social justice and economic justice without environmental justice, without racial justice, without justice for old and young people, without justice for those with disabilities or those in the queer community. So it's very much about taking these issues all together. So yeah.
Thank you, Elliot, and I'll pass you across to Simon. The next question.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, so our next question, which I'll ask first to Elliot. So what are the top 3 issues in St Thomas, and what would you do about them?
Top 3 issues: pavements. The state of our pavements are disgraceful. They're either cracked, there's litter, we've got bins, we have to dodge around them on our way to work every day. And I just think if our pavements were in a much better condition, we would have such a better quality of life, whether it's going to work, whether it's commuting to school, where it's just getting out. It promotes us being able to get out and about and enjoy what's available all around us. So it means we can get to the seaside easier. Means we can go down and enjoy what's down Elm Grove. So that's one. The second is about our relationship with cars. We have a high reliance on vehicles, and I know we're going to talk about this more later on, but we need to think more about active travel. So improving our transport links, and improving the green spaces on our streets as well.
30 seconds.
And third of all, antisocial behaviour, which I know we're also going to be talking about later on as well. But I think a really good kind of way to look at it is, at the minute, we're not providing enough opportunities to particularly young people who don't necessarily have things to do day to day. There's been a lot of emphasis over the last few years putting money into youth clubs, but that's only one thing. And we need to be providing opportunities that work for everyone, not just these social opportunities that work for a couple few.
Okay, thank you very much. And same to Mark, please.
Right, as I say, on the 3 issues in St Thomas's that I'm going to be picking up on is, as Elliot said, antisocial behaviour, which again we'll go into in more detail later on. But that is one of the issues. It's not just the antisocial behaviour. Well, it is the antisocial behaviour, but it's the knock-on effect it has on all the residents. And even we can be talking about, which we will be later on, about the like the Camber and tombstoning off of the Round Tower. It's all these things and the Yobbish influence, and that's going into Somerstown. And we're going to be touching on HMOs too. And the flooding zone, that's another one of my queries. It's always been there. It just needs more management, in the sense of more management, adaptability. the environment is changing. It always has done. But again, us humans, we know how to adapt. But it's putting things in place that are beneficial, because we can't lose Old Portsmouth. It's one of the jewels in the crown. And then going back to the HMOs, you've got, basically it's getting beyond the joke now. It is changing the status quo of Portsmouth. But again, I'll go into more of that. But again, nobody's really touched on the illegal HMOs, which are unregistered ones, which I'm following up personally. And it's really upsetting for the neighbours. But that's the three. That's the three so far.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark.
So thank you, gents. Our next question is over the last 3 years, Portsmouth has seen maximum levels, 4.99% council tax rises. How can this be justified? And it's a two-part question. In a cost of living crisis, what more should be done to support people? And could I ask that first to Mark, please?
Well, I can see why the Lib Dem led council have done it, and it does make sense. It doesn't make sense if you haven't got the money and you're struggling in the first place, but it's keeping services in place. Short term, it could be an election year or anything like that. They could have dropped. They could have dropped the amount of council tax, but then we've got a chance of ending up like Southampton, which we really don't want to know. My main concern is the waste that Portsmouth City Council is oblivious to. I was going along Frasham Road, and I thought, is it one of these pocket parks right on the roundabout? I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought, who would have wasted money there, putting seating on a busy junction with all the fumes that everybody's on about, but they're proudly standing there having their pictures taken. The other waste of money, it's wasting money. This should be directed and put into a kitty for people who are struggling. I know my mum, my mum's a single parent, so I know exactly how it feels. Free school dinners. So stop wasting money on pretty things. We need proper things, purposely things. It's so we need that money used in that kitty. I know there's the internal politics of the councils. I haven't been in the council, but believe you me, there'll be a few things I'll be saying if I do get in the council. We don't need more benches. We need more support when we need it. A voucher system, which takes away the stigma of shopping. You can have your shopping delivered rather than having to go to a bank, a food bank. Now, come on, that's tough going on anybody. Just give them a little bit of self-respect. Vouchers, let them use the vouchers. Let them be delivered. We've got enough guys on bikes that are willing to do that. Let them be part of society rather than going, well, you go to your own little food bank. But so, yeah, that money could be used a lot better. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mark. So, Elliott, how can that council tax rise be justified, and what more needs to be done to help people during a cost of living crisis? Over to you.
I mean, it's almost impossible to really justify tax increases, isn't it? And until government cuts are reversed, there's not a huge amount that local councils can do other than actually maximizing what they're doing with the funds they have. So I think things like improving social care, improving our public transport are big, but something I would particularly love to see is an insulation program across the city of Portsmouth that's looking to insulate social housing and looking to support homeowners in a discounted way to insulate their homes. Because at the end of the day, the cheapest energy is the energy we are not paying for. So if we can insulate homes, that'd be such a big impact for Portsmouth residents.
Perfect. Thank you, Elliot. And Simon, over to yourself for the next question.
Fantastic, thank you. So with recent flooding in Old Portsmouth and the ongoing sea defences works, what would you do to better protect residents and properties from future events, given their likelihood and severity is set to increase? And if I can give that first to Elliott.
So this question is a lot about developers and making sure they're building in a environmentally conscious manner. So this means being conscious of the local ecology, but also for developers to be providing quality builds, but they're not just doing for profit, but ones that will, last and withstand what nature is likely going to be throwing at it. So we also need to stop and actually think about developments on floodplains and environmentally protected areas. And we need to be looking again at the infrastructure levy and consider raising the levy for these particularly vulnerable areas, so money can be put into protecting residents that choose to live in these areas. I would also like to see, seeing as water companies are so intent on destroying and polluting our waters, I would like to see them actually put a bit of money into protecting the local communities that their actions are also harming. And lastly, I'm going to be very green here, but we need to be hitting our 2030 net zero target. Why shouldn't we be ambitious? We need to hit it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, well, Old Portsmouth and the sea defences, it was built on a spit of land at the end of Portsmouth, or the original Portsmouth. It's always been an issue with flooding. If you look through the old CPF photographs, there's a lot of boats going up and down the road. And again, this area had a really colourful past, as depicted on the Bridge Tavern. It was more for entertainment than R&R. Then it became a coal depot, which used to feed the power station just across the way. The Canberra was a big coal depot. So flooding wasn't really given much thought. The thing is, Old Portsmouth is one of the jewels in Portsmouth Crown. We've got old properties there. They've been there for hundreds of years. But what we've got to do is we've got to adapt. And there has been a certain amount of adaptation to those properties. But what we need to do is be in a position whereas homes and business within this flood zone need to be able to apply for grants for individual flood defences, installing sump pumps in the cellars, floodgates, the doors, wall sealing. The whole point is, yes, they've moved into that area, but that area is part of Portsmouth, and we're all proud of that part as well. As well as the rest of Portsmouth, it's all a big nucleus. Yeah, so it's like the sea barriers that are in place at present, they need upgrading and extended to protect the Canberra area. With an independent, so they've got to have a sump, which has got the pipe work, which is subterranean, which will pump the water away quicker, rather than using passive drainage and the pump trucks. And we need to be aware that the charm of Old Portsmouth is not lost due to overzealous building of said defences, as in the Eastern Road, where once was a view, is now a concrete wall. Old Portsmouth is a must place for visitors and tourists alike. Let's look after what we have, and lucky enough to be left with what we got.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Perfect. Now, both of you touched on it as one of the top 3 issues in that initial question. So if we can move the focus now on to antisocial behaviour, with Camber Docks and the Hot Walls being in the St Thomas wards, which are 2 notorious hotspots for antisocial behaviour, particularly in the summer, what would you do to address the antisocial behaviour issue? And can I ask that first, please, to Mark?
Right, where can I start? I'd remove the £200 threshold on the shoplifting. So as it's not a misdemeanor, it's an actual crime, it's theft. So removing the £200 threshold before really prosecution or anything takes place, that needs to be removed. Zero tolerance on that. Technically, the shop worker has been mentally abused or assaulted. They've had to stand there and take abuse and verbal assault. The shop owner's been financially cut short. He's lost stock. He's running a business. And society is a little weaker because it's let it happen. So zero tolerance on the shop workers. Underage shop lifters, their parents, as far as I'm concerned, their parents are responsible for their children. The parents are responsible for the pets they have. The responsibility is for their children. Through this, the children will realise. So, say for instance that the child's committed the crime, there's a fine to pay by the parent. I know it doesn't sound fair, but life isn't fair. But it's not fair on the ones who's the crime's been against. These people need to actually, and then the parents have got to step up, so the children know what they do affects their parent. That's responsibility. That's having a responsible part of being a citizen. Sounds harsh. The antisocial behaviour in the summer. Well, summer's approaching. The dreaded youth running riot is looming. Our thoughts, as I say, sunnier days. Personally, what I'd use in hotspots it's like the police TARDIS, the old police box. More so in a small container, so it's removable. You can use it. You can be positioned. It'll have cameras, but it's a base. It's a visual presence of the police there. Even if they're there in person, they're there in presence. So this will give, this will give people a real sense of security that something's actually happening. They can't expect the police to be everywhere. We've got to build up the police force.
That's over time, Mark.
Okay, I'll leave it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. No, appreciate that. And same question to yourself, Elliott.
Well, first, we need to be protecting these spaces, and particularly the Camber Docks, which the Lib Dem administration currently are trying to remove the right of way around the Camber Docks. We need to be protecting that, and the fact that they're trying to remove that right of way is absolutely disgusting. So we need to be protecting that first of all, and I'm really proud of the Save the Camber campaign in Old Portsmouth, and they've been doing an amazing job in doing that. Now, more generally, just chucking money at police officers is not particularly the answer. That's just like slapping a load of plasters on a cut. That's you're only trying to fix the kind of the outcome, whereas you need to be fixing the root cause, and that's through plentiful of measures in social care, education, local infrastructure. Like I said earlier, we need more opportunities for young people, not just these loads of youth clubs, but work opportunities, volunteering opportunities, education opportunities that everyone can get involved in, and particularly around kind of drug use as well. We need education around the safe use of drugs, because it's almost inevitable that that young people will be using drugs, and unfortunately that is going to happen as much as you tell them not to. So we need to be
20 seconds.
Informing them and educating them how to safely use drugs, not to encourage it, but to ensure that young people stay safe in our local community.
Thank you, Elliott.
Okay, lovely. Thank you both. So our next question, what's your view on the implementation of low traffic neighborhoods, or LTNs as they are commonly referred to, where through traffic is heavily discouraged in order to reduce dependence on cars and increase active travel? And if I can ask that first to Elliott, please.
The perfect question for a Green. I love the premise of low traffic neighborhoods. I grew up in Oxford, where now they have a quite extensive low traffic neighborhood, which is somewhat controversial, and didn't have great consultations with the local community. I think they're a great idea, but there needs to be all kinds of other implementations of active travel at the same time. So you can't just tell people to stop driving and not give them any other options. As I said earlier, we need to be improving our pavements. We need to be improving our local transport system. Something that really frustrates me as someone with a disability is I can't travel for free before 9:30 in the morning and a certain time at night, which almost suggests that disabled people don't have jobs, which is ridiculous. We need to be improving all these kinds of measures, giving free bus travel to veterans, and again, going back to my point earlier, we need to be consulting with the local community as well. I'm a big advocate of participatory budgeting. Sorry,
80 seconds.
Which is all about putting the money, the budgeting decisions in the hands of the local community, the local community, the people who are making the most of the local infrastructure. So that's what I would be advocating for.
Thank you very much. And the same to Mark, please.
Right, okay, from the other end of the coin, or the other side of the coin. Our dependency on cars is based on what we need them to get to work, social interaction with family, visits. It's just a freedom of movement. All these schemes, it's just closing everybody down. And say, use public transport. What public transport? I'll give you an instance. It's I set off for work, and I had to take buses. Obviously, I didn't know the timetable, so it took a little bit longer. But I had to use buses. I was working out of town, and I needed to be there for 8 o'clock. So I set off. It took me an hour and a quarter to get where I needed to go. And I need to find out. I need to get some more bits and pieces from B&Q, which was without transport, it being self-employed, in catching another bus. So it was another hour round trip. By the time I finished that, an hour and a quarter to get back. So traveling without your own mode of transport is a nightmare. But I think everybody's missing out on, everybody's missing out on the point of you do need that personal transport. But again, if you're closing off roads for children to play in, I can't understand it. We was taught as children not to play in roads. They're actively closing roads off at the end, so people have to drive around so children can play on the road. We've got enough spaces for that. There's no need for that. To 20 mile an hour speed limits down side roads, totally agree with that. But it's just making it more difficult for people to actually have freedom of movement. The positive thing would be actually to create jobs in the town, so we didn't have to travel out of the town. Not me personally, but it'll help a lot more people if you brought the jobs into the town rather than working on the satellite industrial estates that we got around the town. Air quality, we live on an island that's surrounded by a sea on 3 sides. We have onshore wind.
That was time, please, Mark.
Gotcha.
Marvellous. If we can just then move on to the next questions. And you, again, I seem to be getting the nuggety questions to ask. You both touched on houses of multiple occupancy, or HMOs. Are they simply a way to satisfy low-cost housing, or are they a problem that really needs to be dealt with? How would you look to handle them differently? And can I ask that first to Mark, please?
Right, HMOs. On the surface, they look a good idea, but to be quite honest, I'll do a quote from someone. It said, "We're turning family homes into overcrowded future slums." And then, not my words, that was Gerald Vernon Jackson's words, which I totally agree with. We're losing family homes. HMOs are basically, we're turning houses into bedsits. That's all it is. The HMO is the house of multiple occupancy. We're turning houses into bedsits. That's breaking down our society again. You're breaking down family units. Where's a young person? It's not the best way to start off life in a bedsit. Now, I thought we got rid of those when we used to have them in Southsea, Shaftesbury Avenue and places like that. I know my dad used to own some properties down there, so that was bedsit land. But most of them were turned into flats for people like me when I was younger to buy as our first property. Now, that's what I want younger people to be in that position to do that, not to go into these HMOs. There's plenty of other developing going on in Portsmouth. Cut down on the HMOs. It's breaking down our society. It's becoming like a slum. We need to stop. We've got plenty of other developments going on. You've got to be quite honest. I've worked out. You've got St John's College, 200 dwellings. Fratton is going to be a new development, 500 dwellings. 200 dwellings St James's, Fraser Gunning, 134 dwellings. And not forgetting the Portsmouth North development of 2,300 homes, a total of 3,334 homes. We don't need more benefits. We need people to give them homes. And that's it. It's, again, I'll stop.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you trying to stick to time. So, Elliott, where do you stand on the HMO debate?
So, I'm not going to downplay HMOs, because HMOs are brilliant assets to young people, young professional who, especially during the cost of living crisis, want to be living somewhere like Portsmouth that they can contribute to and just enjoy their lives. So HMOs are useful, but I think the issue is they're not in the right place. You're putting HMOs in what could potentially be family homes, and family homes aren't being put into where they need to be. So developers are unfortunately prioritizing profit over the needs of the community. So we should be putting particularly the HMOs into these large Victorian homes that aren't necessarily suitable for families, and we need to be taking over the the buildings that have been turned into HMOs and given them to the families. It's just common sense, isn't it? Like we need the right homes in the right place. I'm glad of the new developments here, Somerstown Orchard as well.
30 seconds.
It is quite exciting that especially with that development, the local community can actually have a say in what their needs are. I just hope, as I said earlier, that there's the proper insulation there, and there's enough housing, particularly there for those who are particularly vulnerable with disabilities.
Thank you, Elliott. Simon.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so here's a nice one with a bit more of free reign for it. So if money or politics weren't an issue, so it wasn't something that was going to lose you votes and it's not something you had to fund the budget for, what would you want to change about how the council functions? And if I can ask that first to Elliott.
So for me, I get really, really, really annoyed when I'm watching a council budget or any council meeting, and there's just so much kind of arguments, bickering amongst parties about around stuff they shouldn't be arguing over. What the change I would love to see is we currently have a leader and a cabinet style of local government. Some local authorities have a mayoral style. I would like us to have a committee style, and a committee style is where every councillor has a say through committees. So it's built on consensus, so that every resident has every resident's representative has a say over the decisions the committee, the council are making, and it would be all representative. I think it would be particularly useful if there was all kinds of other electoral reforms around this, but
30 seconds.
this particular idea is just to end all this kind of nonsense that you see at council meetings and ensure the efficiency of local business.
Fantastic, thank you. And to Mark, please.
Right. Well, I've got the floor now then. What would I do? Well, that's a very good question. Right. What I would have and what I would do is have all the council staff come into the working in the offices, dressed in smart clothes, looking like they're a professional. No trainers, no hoodies, no jeans. These people represent Portsmouth, us. They're the first port of call people see. What would you think if you turn up in a tracky bottoms and a t-shirt, and it was your pilot? You feel a tad twitchy. But yes, it's not the clothes that proves a person's worth or how they can do the job, but it shows that they have the respect for you to turn up looking like that. Just saying. And another thing, I would provide a reception desk that is fit for our city council offices, not a picnic table with a laptop on the top as you walk in the door. Now, come on, this is a city. I've seen better receptions at McDonald's. That's what I'd change. And one last other thing, know me. I would expect everybody to turn up for work 5 days a week in the council offices. It's good for team bonding, unlike all this home working scenario. It's not COVID anymore, guys. I'm back at work every day, and you're being paid by me. So it's just the little things that make all the difference. That's what I'd do. Then it'd get better.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark.
Final question.
Indeed.
Before our closing addresses. So this is a nice easy one, rather than the taxing questions I've asked you before. So if you're successful in the election next week, what's the first thing you're going to tackle on day one? And can I ask that first, please, to Mark?
I'd be looking into getting these like TARDIS units set up. Getting those in place before the summer season starts. Let's get this antisocial behaviour under wraps, because enough is enough. There's people live there; it's their lives. These people turn up are just yobs. So zero tolerance for that. The other thing I'd do, going back to the council offices, I'd be hiring, I'd be looking at getting how we greet people in the council offices overhauled, because we need, that represents us. I don't know if you've been in there, but crikey, I was so disappointed every time I've been in there. So that's my two things I'd get done to start off with.
Yep.
Day one.
Fair enough. That's top of your list. Thank you, Mark. And Elliott, your virtual whiteboard, what's top of your list on day one?
So I was trying to think of something else, but I am just so kind of infused about this idea of insulating homes across Portsmouth, ensuring people are able to stay warm through the winters, are able to eat 3 meals a day, ensuring kids that grow up healthy. That's what I'd be looking to do, to insulate social housing and supporting homeowners to insulate their own homes as well if they wish. I just couldn't think of anything better to get started on.
Nope. Thank you, Elliott, and appreciate your answers there. Let me hand you over to Simon for your closing statements.
Okay, so so both of our candidates now will give us their closing statements. If you'd like, that's their pitch to you, the voter, to ask for your vote next Thursday, and we'll do that in the same order as we did with question one. So I'll go first to Mark. So Mark, your closing speech, please.
Right. Well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. One, they're not shoplifters, they're thieves. Youths going around with immunity to the law are thugs. Residents being intimidated, the perpetrators are abusers. So no, I will not support growing grass on bus shelters or shelter roofs. No more road restrictions, planting trees, supporting e-scooters, buying tuk-tuk mini libraries only to be used in dry weather, giving out grants to weird and wonderful ideas, closing roads so children play in them. As I said earlier, we was taught to actually respect the roads for your own safety. But hey, no pointing any figures, as it could be classed as microaggression. And but come on, common sense is so straightforward. I say that, but it isn't. Everybody's got a different common sense. Well, in most cases. But just imagine, if I can address the issues above that apply to our community, what difference that will make. Vote for me, Mark Zimmer, Reform UK, on the May the 2nd. I can't promise the earth, but I promise to make a difference.
Thank you very much, Mark. And Elliott, your closing speech, your pitch to the voters.
Thank you. Funny enough, I'm sure if you flipped Mark's closing statement, it'd probably be close enough to what I would say. So the way politics, policy, our economy is going is just not sustainable. It's not how we're going to be able to move forward. We need smart solutions to the problems we're facing today, and that means insulating homes. It means improving the streets we're living on, not just the roads but the pavements, ensuring people are able to travel about much easier. We also need to be focusing on the well-being of people. It's not about profit, it's about ensuring everybody can live happy lives. That's the important thing at the end of the day. So if that means 4-day weeks, that means 4-day weeks. If that means putting more money into Portsmouth Pride, then we need to be doing that. So yeah, politics done differently with the Green Party.
Thank you very much, Elliott.
Indeed, and thank you to both of our candidates. Thank you for giving us such thorough answers. And the important thing in politics are those people who are prepared to step forward and offer themselves to serve. It's not an easy job, so thank you to both of our candidates who've taken time out of their busy schedule of campaigning to present to the voters their vision of the future. We are still, as we run into May the 2nd, the Pompey Politics podcast schedule is still very fluid. Simon's hair is fairly at fairly high risk for the rest of the coming week, but with just 1 week to go, I'm sure we're going to have much more to bring you. So you've been listening to the Pompey Politics podcast. I've been Ian Tiny Morris.
And the candidates for St Thomas Ward that joined us this evening were Mark Zimmer for Reform UK and Elliott Lee for the Green Party. Thank you both for joining and giving us your answers. And I've been Simon Sansbury, and as Ian said, we'll keep you posted as to if we can squeeze in any more hustings when we're going to schedule our prediction show. So usually when actually half the political activists in the city tell us that we're utterly wrong, and we'll have some news ongoing about attending the count again this year, so that'll be really great. But don't forget, when you are voting on May the 2nd, that you will need to take photo ID with you. So please do make sure to take that along to your place of voting. But do remember that if you've got a driving license or a passport that's expired, it only needs to look like you. It doesn't need to be in date to still be valid. So please do look that up, and we'll share a link about what sort of ID is actually available. Unfortunately, now it is too late for you to apply for a free voter authority certificate to get photo ID, but there'll be lots of ID that you can use that I'm sure most people will actually already have. So thank you very much again to our two candidates. Thank you for giving us your time and your ear, and if you watched us live, your eyes, and we'll see you again soon on the Pompey Politics podcast. Thanks again.